Hi, my name is Jeff Gailey, biology teacher here at Boston Adult Technical Academy. I'm a little bit of a scatterbrained teacher, and even though I love having plants around my classroom, it can actually sometimes be a problem watering them. I'm a man who's actually underwatered a cactus. That's actually not a joke. I've got the cactus right here. You can see that it's drooping. It actually doesn't have enough water to maintain the turgor pressure inside of its body. It's also pot-bound, but still, it's kind of sad that I killed this cactus by not giving it enough water. About halfway through the year, I started to investigate something known as hydroponics. Hydro meaning water, ponics meaning pot. This is a process by which we can actually trick plants into growing in water, putting their roots down in water as if it were soil. And what I'm going to do now is walk you through this hydroponics setup. I'm going to pick up the computer. It's going to be a little awkward, so I hope you forgive me. Anyway, let's go. So what we're looking at first is the results of an experiment that I set up. What we have right here are the control plants. These ones are the typical solution that I have to my problem. You can see that they are, yeah, you can see that these plants, there we go. You can see that these plants are doing well. This is one way that I take care of them. I just put them in a bucket and then the water wicks up the bottom. Compared that to ones that are watered every day with a spray bottle, these ones are actually not doing as well. You can see that many of their leaves are brown. It's very distinct ways that leaves die that tell you about what's wrong with the plant. If the leaves were turning yellow and then turning brown, that would tell me that the plant was soaking up the nitrogen from the leaves and trying to save itself by saving nitrogen. Those plants need a little fertilizer. These leaves are just dying, however. The plants don't have enough time to soak back the nutrients. And so this leads me to believe that these that I water every day, if left over the weekend, don't get enough water to live. This is actually a problem that I've had and why I became so interested in hydroponics. And these are the fate of plants that are left out. The soil roots are totally desiccated and these plants are pretty much dead. It's very difficult to see, but all of their leaves are brown. This is what I'm trying to avoid. So even though these plants died, I'm going to collect the seeds from them, and their sacrifice for science won't be in vain. What I'm going to do now is walk you through the hydroponic system. The hydroponic system is timed off of this. I'm going to walk around the classroom. What I've got right here is the timer. This timer is set digitally to move around, and there's several different on-off positions programmed in here. The really neat thing about this is I can actually superimpose this timing with this. The light turns on, and that actually turns on this outlet. This cord goes across the classroom all the way, tracking to right here. Right here is the actual setup. Here is the water pump, or the air pump. This is a simple aquarium pump, and right now it's pumping out some air. What I have here is a little bit of PVC tubing. I spent about $20 picking up on some PVC tubing and fitters, and all I have to do is take this and stick it on the end, which is going to be really hard with just one hand, okay? But once it's secured on the end, right here. There we go. Silly, right? Low production quality. Once it's secured on the end, what happens is that the air pressure in here increases. That air pressure causes water to move up through this pipe. Now what's in this water? This water is what the plant needs. Remember those yellow leaves earlier? I'm looking to avoid that. But I'm also looking to avoid burning out the plants. If I were to use Miracle-Gro, for example, this fertilizer is excellent, but is a little bit too acidic. The ammonium, or the nitrogen in here is the wrong form. It's actually nitric acid, which is bad in solution. The pH would be too low for the plants. So what I did is I spent about $15 getting this. This is really handy, really good. I only need about 10 milliliters of this in this entire jug in order to water it. And there's about, what is there? Yeah, there's about a liter in here, so that means that I could hypothetically make up 100 gallons of this nutrient broth. The really excellent thing about this is that from here, because all the water eventually gets back here, what ends up happening is that I lose very little to evapotranspiration. Over the course of the 4 hottest days in Boston, actually over the course of a week, I've only lost 250 milliliters of water from this system. If you let a gallon container out in the open, it would probably have gone by that point. So let's walk through the system, shall we? We're going to start at the easiest point. The easiest point is right here, cutting this guy in half. Once you've got this cut in half, you save the base, and this actually becomes the planter. You put the base right on there, and it stays pretty steady. The other thing that I did was I took and drilled into this. This is a 1/4 inch PVC, a 1/4 inch outer diameter, and drill I make with a actually be the tight seal. What I did to save myself a little bit of heartache by only thinking that it's airtight, is I put a little bit of aquarium silica on the bottom to make it watertight. So what happens is when I screw it down, it's all good. And all the water that collects will go back, will go up, and then it will drain out back through the tube. Let me show you what this looks like all set up. These are some of the fixtures that I've got. The water flows through this bottom pipe all the way up and then goes up. And you can actually see the water level in these. So the water will actually collect, and then when the time is right, come draining back out. We're not quite close to the draining out yet. I'll show you what happens when that's the case. This right here is a little bubbler system. This is important because any air that gets in the line, if it goes through these, would actually potentially damage plants. So any air in the line goes here to the first one. Let's go to our next step. The next step is this. I chose aquarium rocks as a growth medium for this for 2 reasons. First of all, they're non-porous. Second of all, they're small enough to have a lot of surface area, or a lot of surface area compared to the actual volume. That means that the water is going to stick there by adhesion, by capillary action, a lot longer after it drains out. The other thing is that they're big enough to handle, easy enough to clean. I tried sand. Sand doesn't quite work. So the idea is that the plants will grow their roots down into here and have something firm to hold on to. But it turns out that's actually not an idea. These are our finished products. So I want you to compare that to the earlier plants. I know they are different species, but here's why I'm not too concerned by it. Because these plants are impatiens, instead of marigolds, they're actually classified as a type of succulent. They've got a very juicy stem, and if they were to go without water, you would see much more pronounced problems. But you can actually see the water right here. The water is percolating up through the growth medium and is actually getting down into the roots. Ideally, there's enough nutrients in here that the roots don't have to grow all that much. They get flooded by water and nutrients 6 times a day for 7 minutes a day, or 7 minutes a time. That's just enough to fill it up, run out of water from the reservoir, and get back in here. So these plants are actually doing really well. You can see that before, some of their old leaves, they were limited by nitrogen, but they're not limited by nitrogen anymore. This incredibly rapid growth, these plants grew 1.5 inches in 2 days. I'm going to say that again. They grew 1.5 inches in 2 days. They're not limited by water. They're not limited by nutrients. At this point, they're growing up. They're growing towards the window. These plants are 100% limited by light at this point. It's not a good thing. I wish I could get some grow lights in here, but think about that. I went from a scenario where I was killing my plants to almost overnight they're flowering, they're all doing phototaxis towards the window, and they're limited entirely by light. This is a really cool system. Things that I would do in the future, I'd probably get some black tubing to eliminate the algae growth. I'd probably build a more firm frame just because this is a little rickety. I'm definitely going to spend some time working on a full frame. And I'm going to make some bigger pots. Right now these impatiens are, well, they're cute, but they're not really that practical. With larger pots, I would be able to grow tomatoes, I'd be able to grow basil, I might even be able to get some potatoes or something along those lines going in class. So we've pretty much reached the edge of our ebb cycle. That air pump going to the water has now just about run out. And you can see that the air blowout is actually doing its job. The pump continues to go. The pump continues to go, but as the air pressure builds up, it goes back out that. What eventually happens is that because I've got the timing down, the pump timer actually goes off. This happens automatically, although it's not programmed in right now. This will automatically turn off. The light goes off, the power goes off, and the pump goes off. Once the pump goes off, what happens is that the water starts to drain out. The water drains out and leaves the system. I'm not quite sure why, but it actually seems to drain out in a series. That's good because that actually helps suck everything out of the system. So everything from down there goes back. But the rocks remain wet. The rocks remain wet. And with the moisture on their roots, with the nutrients in the water, with all that stuff taken together, I actually don't have to worry about killing my plants anymore. I know it's been somewhat of a rocky ride, and I know it's taken a little while, but thank you for being with me through this hydroponics system. This is as much for your benefit as it is for mine. I'm donating this, and I'm going to be building a bigger, better one next year.